This aircraft started its life as a promising and advanced design, but eventually ended up as a near useless target tug, and was so bad it led to the downfall of its manufacturer. Developed for the US Navy as a new carrier-based scout bomber, delays and problems eventually prevented this plane to fly combat missions. This was the Brewster SB2A Buccaneer, so let's see the history of this aircraft today. During the 1930s, the US Navy had several new scout bombers and torpedo bombers developed, like the Curtiss SBC-3 or the Douglas SBD Dauntless. During this decade, the aviation industry went through massive changes, and the evolution was so fast that most planes became obsolete by the time they entered service, just a few years after their development. The Dauntless, entering service in late 1939, was designed as an updated version of the original Northrop BT-1, and was only planned as a stopgap solution, as the Navy already issued new specifications for its replacement even before deliveries started. They were actually so much in a hurry that they even placed orders for several different types, even before their first flight, such as the Curtiss SB2C Helldiver, or the topic of this video, the Brewster Buccaneer. But first, let's just go back to the beginning and see how the Brewster plane was developed. Brewster, though it was only a small aircraft parts manufacturer in the 1930s, had some success with its F-2A Buffalo design, which was one of the first US monoplane carrier-based fighters, and also with their first bomber design, the XSBA-1, which entered service as SBN-1. Though it was built in very small numbers, and by the time it entered service it became basically obsolete, it gave the confidence to Brewster to enter a new design for the Navy's latest requirements in 1939. This was their Model 340, which received the Navy designation XSB2A. It was a modern design for the time, a mid-wing monoplane construction featuring retractable landing gear, an internal bomb bay capable of carrying 1,000 pounds of bombs, a heavy armament of 250 caliber and 430 caliber machine guns, and it used the Wright R2600 engine, producing 1,700 horsepower, giving the design an estimated speed above 310 miles an hour. Brewster had every reason to think their new aircraft will be a success, because already during its development, even before the first flight, the French government already ordered 250 units. These never reached France before the German occupation, but the British took over the order and added another 500 planes to it. Actually, the British before World War II thought the dive bomber was a useless concept, but after witnessing the success of the German Ju-87 in France, they changed their minds. Since the development of such aircraft would have taken years, the British Purchasing Commission was tasked to look for suitable types in America. After inspecting several types, including the Vought SB2U Vindicator, the Val TV-72, and the Brewster XSB2A Buccaneer, they found the Brewster design the most promising. The Dutch also ordered 162 of the type, and in mid-1940 the Australian government followed suit as well, by ordering 243 units. The US Navy also put their faith in the type, ordering 140 units in December 1940. As we mentioned earlier, they were very much in a hurry to replace the Dauntless with more advanced designs. Things were looking great for Brewster and their new design, but that is when the problems started to appear. Brewster grew from a small parts supplier to a fully developed manufacturer in just a few years, and their manufacturing process, management, and capabilities couldn't keep up with the sudden growth. Securing orders for more than 1,000 units for their new type that haven't even performed its first flight caused troubles, and the orders for the SB2A were seriously delayed. And when the plane finally took to the skies the first time in June 1941, almost 2 years after the first orders, things only got worse. After the test flights of the XSB2A, the aircraft went through significant redesigns. The fuselage became more than a foot longer, additional armor and self-sealing fuel tanks were installed, and the original closed bolt turret design for the rear gunwale was replaced with just a flexible gun mount. As a result of the changes, the production variant of the type became more than 3,000 pounds heavier than planned. This additional weight greatly reduced its range, speed, and maneuverability. Meanwhile, despite the delays in production, Brewster notified the British Commission that because of the rising labor and material costs, the unit price of the planes will be significantly higher than estimated. By this time, the Australians cancelled their orders in light of the troublesome development and bought Vultee Vengeance dive bombers instead. But the British still wanted their orders fulfilled by Brewster. It became clear the company was mismanaged, and things got so out of hand that in a radical step, the US Navy simply seized the corporation in April 1942. Finally, with the new management, deliveries of the plane started, although at a very slow pace. The first Brewster Bermuda dive bombers were delivered to the RAF in July 1942, just to be found unsuitable for combat use very soon. But more about this when we get to the service history of the plane. The US forces had to wait for these bombers even longer, as deliveries only took place in 1943. The fact that Brewster started manufacturing the F-4U Corsair under license didn't help the already overloaded assembly lines either. And as it turned out, this contract just caused another set of problems, as many of the Brewster-built Corsairs lost their wings during flight, a problem that was traced back to untrained workforce and the lack of proper quality control at the company, resulting in the cancellation of that contract as well after just 430 units built. The Buccaneer was 39 feet 2 inches long with a wingspan of 47 feet. It had an empty weight of 9,924 pounds and a maximum takeoff weight of 14,289 pounds. The plane was powered by a single Wright R2600 radial engine, developing 1700 horsepower, and with this engine it could reach a top speed of 274 miles an hour and a cruise speed of 161 miles an hour. It had a range of 1,675 miles and a service ceiling of 24,900 feet. The plane's armament consisted of two 50 caliber machine guns built in the fuselage and two 30 caliber machine guns in the wings. As a defensive armament, it featured dual 30 caliber machine guns on a flexible mount at the rear, and it could carry 1,000 pounds of bombs in its internal bomb bay. The SB2A1 was the original prototype. The SB2A2 was the service designation of the type at the US Navy. 80 of them were built. The SB2A3 was a carrier-based variant featuring an arrestor hook and folding wings. 60 of them were built. The SB2A4 was the designation of the variants originally built for the Netherlands, but taken over by the US Navy. 162 were built. The Bermuda Mark I was the British designation for the type. They were built with the powered rear gun mount. 468 were built from the original order of 750 units. Deliveries of the Buccaneers only started in mid-1942, a few months after the Navy basically seized the company in April to handle the mismanagement that was going on at Brewster. The RAF received its first Brewster Bermuda planes in July 1942, just to find out after testing that the type, contrary to the estimates, was underpowered, too heavy and sluggish. It performed very poorly and was found unsuitable for combat use. In total, 468 units were built from the original British order of 750 planes, from which 98 were taken by the US forces, and 370 were planned to be converted to target tugs. But because the cost of the conversion would have added another large sum to the already spent almost $70 million, which the British paid for these basically useless planes, in the end, most of them were scrapped without any use. The US Navy took deliveries of the Buccaneers during 1943 and 1944. 80 of these were SB2A2 variants with conventional construction, and 60 were SB2A3 models, featuring foldable wings and an arrestor hook for carrier operations. But just like the British, the US Navy also found the type unsuitable for combat, or even for training flights, so they were used as target tugs or to train maintenance crews. The US Army Air Force also received 108 of these planes, which they designated A34. But similarly to other services, they all used the Buccaneers for all kinds of delivery missions. They were not even repaired if they malfunctioned. The 162 aircraft, originally ordered by the Netherlands, were assigned to the Marines by the Navy, under the designation SB2A4, and they were used to establish the first night fighter squadron of the Marine Corps. This was actually the closest the Buccaneers managed to get to being useful. In total, 771 units were built from this plane, but given their poor performance and late deliveries, none of them were used in combat. In fact, many of them were scrapped while being brand new, without even flown operationally. The management problems at Brewster, late deliveries and performance problems of the Buccaneer put the company in serious trouble. And when in July 1944 the Navy cancelled the contract for the F4U assembly as well, their situation became hopeless. 3 months later, in October, the management decided to shut down the company. And by 1946, Brewster was completely dissolved. In the end, Brewster and the development of the SB2A Buccaneer are standing as prime examples of mismanagement. They tried to grow too big too fast, taking on large orders for their untested design, and on top of it they accepted assembly orders for the F4U Corsair, jeopardizing their production lines, which led to the fast end of the company. The Buccaneer stands amongst the worst planes of World War II, with tens of millions spent on building them, but in return they contributed nothing to the defeat of the Axis forces in the end. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a like, subscribe to my channel, and in the comments let me know if there's any interesting events or vehicles you'd like to see.